ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදිත් IDD කෝල්ස් ගන්නේ SLT ෆෝන් එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Good evening. Tonight, changing hands. The Central Bank and the Securities and Exchange Commission brought back under the Ministry of Finance. Gathering momentum. High builds up on the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister.
We have to change the Prime Minister depend on the policies.
Assuming that he is removed, that what would be the next step? Depending on that, I will take a decision.
Exemplary conduct. President Maithripala Sirisena says his decision to ban social media was internationally hailed. Extra slice of the pie. Colombo Stock Exchange chief questions government's share in post-demutualization.
There is no gestation period for people to come in and learn.
And in sports, bad to worse, Stephen Smith and David Warner slapped with a 12-month ban by Cricket Australia.
I want to stress that we are contemplating significant sanctions in each case.
It's 9 o'clock on the dot from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to First at 9, Other Derana's premier English news bulletin. Hello everyone, I'm Mahesh Johnny. Many stories to report to you tonight, including the fallback after the demutualization bill. That's coming up later on in the show. But first, in our lead story. A tense situation erupted during the ballot held this morning to elect the chairman of the Muskelia Pradesh Sabha. Riot police was called in as the situation continued to worsen, with supporters of rival parties, the Ceylon Workers' Congress and National Union of Workers, clashing outside the Pradesh Sabha premises.
The inaugural session of the Muskelia Pradesh Sabha, which was newly established through the 2018 local authorities election, commenced its proceedings this morning at 10:30 a.m. to elect its chairman and deputy chairman. Ceylon Workers' Congress's Shen Bagawali was nominated to the position of chairperson of the Pradesh Sabha, backed by 8 members from the CWC. She was elected to the position as no other names were nominated. Periyasamy Pradeepan of the UPFA was nominated to the position of deputy chairman. Of the 16 total seats in the Muskelia Pradesh Sabha, the UNP and CWC both occupy 7 seats each, while the SLPP and UPFA have 1 member each. Violence broke out after supporters of Minister Palani Digambaran accused the Ceylon Workers' Congress, led by MP Arumugam Tondaman, of forcibly detaining and hiding a female UNP member of the Pradesh Sabha as she was absent during the vote. Due to the tense situation, a heavy police security presence was seen in and around the Pradesh Sabha building. Meanwhile, supporters of the Ceylon Workers' Congress and the National Union of Workers clashed in front of the Muskelia police station after the ballot. Stones were also pelted between the supporters of both sides, with police officers also being on the receiving end. Later, the police special task force was brought in to quell the situation. Individuals who sustained injuries from the incident were taken to Muskelia Hospital for treatment.
Today also saw mayors and chairpersons being elected in various other local authorities as well. Today's events included a peculiar case where a woman member elected as chair, passing the position over to another member.
Secret ballot was held today to elect the mayor of the Kurunegala Municipal Council, with Sarath Sanjeeva of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna emerging victorious. He became the mayor of Kurunegala with 11 votes, while his opponent Varuna Premaratna of the United National Party could only secure 9. The Jail Urban Council also convened today with Shammika Dayas of SLPP being elected as its chairman with 10 votes in an open ballot. In the meantime, Tyagaratna Alvis of the SLPP was elected as the chairman of the Vattala Pradeshya Sabha with 21 votes in an open ballot held this afternoon. UNP candidate Anura Patinayaka, who went head-to-head with him for the post, could only secure 12 votes. At the Ambagamuwa Pradeshya Sabha, where the UNP had secured a majority, it was Jayasankar Pereira of the SLPP who was elected as the chairman in a secret ballot held today. His opponent Ajanta Nelum Kumara, who got 8 votes, was elected as the deputy chairman. Meanwhile, Hela Priyanandaraja, who secured most votes of the local body from the ward of Ambagamuwa, was not pleased with him missing out on the chairmanship. There were peculiar scenes at the Badulla Pradeshya Sabha where a woman member was elected to the position of chairman, only for her to hand the position over another member. Ramesiri Mantilaka of the UPFA and Shanta Pradeep Liyanage of the UNP contested for the chairmanship in a secret ballot, but the votes were deadlocked on 7 each. The local authorities commissioner then drew lots, which resulted in Muthuvel Jayanayake being elected as chairman. She in return handed the position over to Ramesiri Mantilaka. At the Badulla Municipal Council, where the UNP had a majority, the mayor was elected from the SLPP, while the deputy mayor came from UPFA as a result of SLPP and the UPFA using their votes collectively. Priyantha Amarasiri of the SLPP became mayor of Badulla, defeating Amarasiri Hamachandra of the UNP 12 votes to 9. The maiden session of the Attanagalla Pradeshya Sabha was held today, during which members of the UNP called for a secret ballot to elect the chairman, while the majority called for an open ballot. Later, UNP members excited the chamber and Priyantha Pushpakumara of SLPP was elected as the chairman of the Attanagalla Pradeshya Sabha.
Political party leaders today decided not to use the electronic voting system in Parliament and use roll call when the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is taken up. The debate on the no-confidence motion is set to be taken up on the 4th of next month. Meanwhile, the topic continued to draw various opinions from politicians today as well.
We have to change the Prime Minister depend on the policies. I discussed with Prime Minister. I handed over some document. Within 1-2 days, I will expose to all the medias and country. I mentioned in this document about what kind of policies we have to implement within 1 year and what kind of bad policies we have to not implement. However, Prime Minister not yet answer me. I am waiting for that. There is no good reply. Definitely, I support to the no confidence motion.
My position is country has already reached to an anarchy situation. My concern is by removing one person and put another person in place won't resolve this one. Assuming that he is removed, that what would be the next step? Depending on that, I will take an independent decision.
There are no provisions within the Constitution to bring a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, as Clause 48.1 deems that it can be brought against the government. As such, it is better if the 225 parliamentarians are versed on the 19th Amendment. The members in the opposition subtly include a line stating it is against the government, as otherwise it isn't valid. The debate on the no-confidence against the Prime Minister will be taken up on the 4th of April. The vote will be on roll call. Also, we can cast it via the fingerprint system. At the time of the vote, the Speaker has the power to decide on a secret or an open ballot. There is a high possibility that we will go for the oldest system where the vote will be cast on roll call. This is mainly because of the erroneous display of votes recently seen even when SP Disanayake was not in the house to cast his ballot. We still haven't decided on our stance. We don't announce it at junctions or at public places. We don't intend to use this for nefarious purposes. Conspiracies are uncalled for. If you think it's not good, then leave and criticize. People like straightforwardness, not backstabbers, even if it's the same for people who sought help from Ranil Wickremesinghe. I agree that there should be reforms within the UNP. Despite Range Bandara speaking against, I believe he will not act against the Prime Minister. There will be a meeting tomorrow with the leaders of the UNF and the Prime Minister. We hope to discuss all matters with the Prime Minister. There hasn't been a discussion on the PM's post. The discussion is mainly on restructuring and reforms of the party.
Another shooting was reported from Maligawatta last night. As of now, the total shooting incidents that occurred for the year 2018 has risen to 9.
A 25-year-old youth was shot dead by an unidentified assailant in Maligawatta last night. Police spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara told First at 9 that the shooting occurred at around 8:30 p.m. yesterday on the Alamik Balbai Road in Maligawatta. The deceased was identified as 31-year-old Saul Hamid Mohammad Nifraz from Godavilla Dambavita in Warakapola. Further investigations are currently underway by the police. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department in a communique says that the government has taken necessary steps to curtail operations of organised crime gangs within the capital. The government hopes to strengthen the police intelligence unit in this regard. Also during the Cabinet media briefing today, Cabinet co-spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Sinaratne was defensive when journalists raised questions about the government's efforts to stop the current crime wave.
You should have asked that question from the previous government. The underworld didn't suddenly rise. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa was killing members of the underworld, it's this same media who spoke on democratic rights. So that's why people voted on the 8th of January. Do you want Gotabaya's way or our way? So according to you, the disappearance of Eknali Goda was correct. Assaulting Keith Noya was correct. Assaulting Upali Tennakon was correct. Sunanda Deshapriya fleeing the country was correct. Podya Jayanta fleeing the country was correct. And also Sanat Balasuriya. Speak about those as well.
අනාවරණය වෙලා තියෙනවද ඔය ඝාතන සිද්ධ කරේ ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා කියලා නැතුව තව ටික දවසක් ඉන්න තමුන්නාන්සේ අත්තරංගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඔව් දැන් තමුන්නාන්සේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ අර.
Do you expect us to conduct the inquiry the same way they conducted the case of Sarath Fonseca? We do it according to the country's penal code, not according to Gotabya's penal code.
නැතුව ගෝඨාභයගේ දණ්ඩ නීති සංග්‍රහයට නෙවෙයි.
Swiss ambassador to Sri Lanka, Heinz Walker-Nedekun, says that solutions to ethnic issues in Sri Lanka should be found within the country. He further says that any solution being manufactured externally will not fit Sri Lanka's model, as the people locally knows best to address issues. The ambassador made these comments addressing the media after meeting with Muslim representatives in Kandy as part of a goodwill visit to areas that saw unrest in recent times.
The ambassador of the European Union, Tunglai Mark, the ambassador of Romania, Dr. Victor Shujea, and the Swiss ambassador, Heinz Walker-Nedekun, visited Kandy district from March 27th to the 28th. The ambassadors paid their respects to the chief prelate of the Asgiri chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnana Ratana Thera, and the chief prelate of the Malvatta chapter, Most Venerable Tibbatuavi Sri Siddhartha Sumangala Thera. During discussions, the envoys emphasized the importance of starting a systematic dialogue with other religious leaders to avoid the reoccurrence of the recent violence that was experienced in Kandy. The ambassadors also met representatives of the Muslim community to discuss the recent communal violence and its aftermath. They expressed their sympathies for the loss of life and the destruction of homes, mosques and businesses. Addressing the media afterwards, the ambassadors noted that the violence in Kandy district underscores the need to redouble efforts to support national reconciliation.
Than just a Sinhalese or a Muslim or a Tamil. He is an individual person who should be respected as an individual person. I think to overcome this ethnocentric perspective is one of the main challenges this country has. And I hope and I know that there are in all the communities, the moderates who are aware of that and want to contribute to overcome this. What happened here is just another symptom of this ethnocentric, narrow perspective. So that's the reason why to start with a dialogue is absolutely crucial. And to create platforms where all the communities, the political, the religious, and the business leaders can share their grievances. And starting with that, start to try to understand the other party, just to listen. Here, dialogue is first and foremost listening. If you cannot listen, you will never understand what the positions and the interests and the fears and the hopes and the concerns of those who are participating in this dialogue are. And then you can start building up solutions. What can we do in order to prevent these kind of incidents to recur? I mean, it is not falling from heaven, these incidents. It's man-made. 90% of the problems in any country are homemade. 90% of the solution has to be developed in this country. And I don't like to hear all the time, this is because of the international interference. I don't deny that there is international interference, perhaps not so much from Switzerland, because we are not big enough to have a political leverage. But I think you should be aware that these are your problems and you have to find solutions.
President Maithripala Sirisena says that the government's decision to ban social media platforms following the Kandy unrest was hailed internationally. Addressing an event held in Colombo this morning, the head of state added that certain international organizations are also of the view that the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar could have been quelled had the country taken decisive measures as done by Sri Lanka.
President Maithripala Sirisena presided over the centenary celebrations of the Fatima Muslim Ladies College in Colombo this morning.
Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Social Republic.
When a series of incidents occurred in Kandy several weeks ago, I decided to ban Facebook. Some blamed me for it, but many parents of students sitting for ordinary and advanced level examinations commended the move. Some even requested me to ban Facebook forever for the betterment of their children's upbringing. Various international institutions hailed the decision to ban Facebook during that time. It was not done to take away media freedom, but to prevent a tragedy. Taking Sri Lanka as an example, many international organizations stated that had Myanmar taken decisions as Sri Lanka did, they would not be facing the situation they are confronted with at present.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe makes evident that a 10-year plan is required to uplift the education sector in Jaffna, which regressed over the last 30 years. The Premier touched on the government's plan towards this end at a function held at Temple Trees today.
327 teachers who served in the Northern Province under voluntary and contract basis were given permanent appointments today under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees. Addressing the gathering, the Premier expressed these views.
Today I can name numerous educational districts better than Jaffna. The human resource which is vital for education was lost to Jaffna and that led to its collapse. What we have to do today is to implement the preliminary program to develop the education in Jaffna. I won't say that this will be achieved in 1 year since it will take 10. We have provided teachers for the East and the schools will also have to be developed. Within the 10 years, we have to introduce an education system conducive to Jaffna, and for that, we need the assistance of retired principals and teachers as well as provide better teachers and promote best performers. The results of what we start today will become evident in 10 years. I call on the Minister of Education to work with the Provincial Council and form a new program to improve the quality of education in Jaffna within 10 years.
Also in local news, the police headquarters today in a communique confirmed the arrest of former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weerathunga. The Interpol recently issued a red notice against former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weerathunga, as the court issued an arrest warrant against him in connection with the purchase of MiG aircraft for the Air Force. Weerathunga was arrested at the Dubai airport yesterday while in transit to the United States. Police stated that diplomatic negotiations are underway to bring the former diplomat to Sri Lanka. Let's take a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back, everyone. President Maithripala Sirisena issued an extraordinary gazette today in which it places the central bank under the purview of the Ministry of Finance. Under the new gazette notification, the Securities and Exchange Commission will also be under the purview of the Finance Ministry. Both were previously under the purview of the National Policy and Economic Affairs Ministry, a portfolio headed by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. In addition, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, its subsidiaries and associated companies are brought under the Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs. Furthermore, through the extraordinary gazette, Lanka Litro Gas Limited is placed under the purview of the Ministry of Public Enterprise and Kandy Development. Now, starting in the early 1990s, stock exchanges around the world have been undergoing major organizational and operational changes. One of the most visible change has been the trend towards demutualization, the process of converting exchange from not-for-profit member-owned organizations to for-profit shareholder-owned corporate entities. However, since the demutualization bill was tabled in Parliament, an ongoing debate was engulfed in the share allocation and the process in which the changes will take place within the Colombo Stock Exchange. With this in mind, First at 9 took an in-depth analysis into the impact the bill would make within the stock exchange.
The Colombo Stock Exchange currently consists of 299 companies representing 20 business sectors. In addition, the current market capitalization, which presently stands at over 2,000 billion rupees, contributes between 23% and 24% to the GDP, which is comparatively low in comparison to regional stock markets that contribute over 50% to its GDP. The Sri Lanka Capital Market Assessment Report published in 2016 by the Asian Development Bank states that Sri Lanka needs to undertake substantial and challenging structural and policy reforms in order to establish a well-functioning financial system if the country is to achieve its target. It is in this backdrop that the SEC introduced a capital market development master plan called the SEC 2020 Vision in 2014, where the plan envisaged the equity market capitalization to increase from 32% of the GDP to 66% of GDP by 2020. Therefore, one of the strategies to achieve this growth target was the proposal of the demutualization of the Colombo Stock Exchange, which requires parliamentary approval. To this end, the demutualization bill was tabled in Parliament with its third reading done on Wednesday. If the bill is passed, it will see the CSE being converted from a not-for-profit stock exchange into a shareholder-owned, commercially operated, for-profit corporate entity. The CSE is the only major exchange in South Asia that remains mutualized.
The Colombo Stock Exchange is still small in comparison to regional players. We haven't still been able to leverage the CSE in order to raise funds outside of the banking system.
Speaking to Derana, chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Ray Abewardena, spoke on the structural changes that would follow should the bill be passed.
Since about the early 2000s, there has been a notion that the stock exchange must be demutualized, which means the ownership needs to be liberalized and permit other investors also to have an ownership in the Colombo Stock Exchange, because there is a feeling that it's sort of a closed community that is running the market. The profits are plowed back into the market. The owners do not get a profit share. That scenario will change, that model will change, it will be profit oriented. The board, which is currently 5 from the members and 4 government appointees, that composition also will change. There will be those from the public who will be appointed to represent the public on the board.
However, share allocations is likely to be one of the biggest contentious issues of the demutualization. According to the bill, it is proposed that 60% of the stake will be allocated for the 15 members of the CSC and the remaining 40% will be allocated towards the Capital Market Development Fund.
The members are of the opinion fervently, strongly, that the allocation should be 70-30. There have been discussions that have gone on the basis of a 60-40, but the members are confident that eventually we will have a 70-30 share allocation.
However, former director of the Securities Exchange Commission, Dr. Arita Vikramanayake, said that there is no basis for the government to claim 40% of the stake.
Government actually wanted 50%. The government wants 50% of what we built up over the years. And I don't see any basis on which the SEC can say that they have to have 50% of the income from the demutualization. At the moment, the SEC takes a cess of market operations. So what have they done with that money? Have they spent it on development? Is that money meant to be kept in an account earning interest? No, right? I think it should go to the brokers who have legal right to it, or else it must be put in the exchange. A trust under the exchange for market development by the stock exchange and not by the SEC.
Meanwhile, former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Tilak Karunaratne, told Derana that the allocation was based on the advice of the ADB.
We, the Commission, took the advice of the 2 consultants and looked at many jurisdictions and decided that the brokers should get 60% and the balance 40% should be given to the Capital Market Development Fund. So it finally came for the second reading to Parliament. And there, Ms. Alsha De Silva was highly critical of SEC. Usually, the ministers defend their officials, not offend or attack them. The government must go with the 60-40. There is no need to mess around with that. And that was if the brokers thought that they had good grounds, they would have challenged it in the Supreme Court without going to the back door and kind of say ministers.
Stockbrokers say that the stake allocated for the Capital Market Development Fund could be further reduced if a foreign strategic partner could be brought into the equation.
Part of the development fund could the stake actually be further reduced and probably be given to a strategic player, because that is also in line with the development of the stock exchange.
Experts, however, remain skeptical over how the Colombo Stock Exchange should be demutualized.
Do it in such a manner so that eventually, when the transition does take place, that change of authority will happen seamlessly. There is no gestation period for people to come in and learn.
Even if they do mutualize it by force, you're going to have a lot of after effects of that process. So you have to buy the brokers into the process. You got to talk to them, find consensus, and find a process which is acceptable to everybody.
Let's take you to the stock market now. The Bourse closed flat today with Japan's Orix exiting the LOLC group, driving up market turnover. The Colombo All-Share Index closed 0.23 points lower at 6,440.20, and the S&P SL20 more liquid stocks gained 4.50 points, up 0.12% to 3,639.52. Now, market turnover was 13.4 billion rupees. Let's get a detailed picture of the trading, and for that, here is R. Sivanandan from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 3,013.97 billion rupees. Today there were 6 crossings and the crossing turnover was 313.8 million rupees. Today's foreign purchases was 395.29 million rupees and the foreign sales was 13.05 billion rupees.
Watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Let's quickly move on to international news. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has in fact visited China with talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping hailed as successful. The confirmation of the visit by both China and North Korea puts an end to days of speculation and is Kim's first known foreign trip since taking office in 2011. Kim Jong-un is due to meet South Korean President Moon Jae-in in April and US President Donald Trump in May, and was expected for the North Korean leader to consult Beijing before the summits.
Though billed as an unofficial trip, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's appearance in Beijing contained almost all the trappings of a state visit, complete with an honor guard and banquet at Beijing's Great Hall of the People. According to China's Xinhua news agency, during the visit, Kim assured his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping that he was committed to giving up his nuclear weapons, but with conditions. Kim was reported as saying that the issue of denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula can be resolved if South Korea and the United States respond to North Korea's efforts with goodwill, create an atmosphere of peace and stability while taking progressive and synchronous measures for the realization of peace. The North's KCNA news agency reported today as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as having said that the summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping was a milestone in improving bilateral ties.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
In sports news, head of Cricket Australia James Sutherland had some harsh words yesterday for the Test trio being sent home after the ball tampering scandal in Cape Town, saying they face significant sanctions. Australian cricketing management has also come under scrutiny for their tactics to refrain from using the word cheat to describe the players involved in the scandal. Australian cricket's top man yet again steered well clear of the word. Sutherland also promised significant sanctions for the trio in addition to the punishment meted out by the ICC.
The Chief Executive Officer of Cricket Australia, James Sutherland, addressed a packed news conference today in Johannesburg on the latest developments in the ball tampering saga. Sutherland only referred to Captain Steve Smith, Vice-Captain David Warner and opener Cameron Bancroft as disgraced players and said that they had broken the rules. He also said, contrary to Australian media reports, coach Darren Lehmann was not involved in the plot and the trio embroiled in the controversy will be flown back to Australia today.
All three players who have been reported will leave South Africa tomorrow. Their replacements in the Australian squad for the fourth test here in Johannesburg will be Matthew Renshaw, Glenn Maxwell and Joe Burns. Replacement players will arrive in South Africa over the next 24 hours. Tim Payne has been officially appointed captain of the Australian men's test team. In regard to the three players on report, I want to stress that we are contemplating significant sanctions in each case. These sanctions will reflect the gravity with which we view what has occurred and the damage it has done to the standing of Australian cricket.
Following through his comments, Cricket Australia today slapped 12-month bans each on Steve Smith and David Warner. Cameron Bancroft has also been issued a 9-month ban. A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Well, tomorrow will relatively be a warmer day with temperatures ranging between 20 and 32 degrees Celsius, with the lowest expected in the Central Hills as usual. When we look at the map, a low pressure zone will form from the Kandy district and will gradually spread throughout the island. Well, the sun will be very welcoming in the areas of Anuradhapura, Mena, Colombo and Trincomalee. But in the areas of Gaul, Matara and Hambantota as well as Kandy, we'll experience showers and thunder showers. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. Now, before we wrap things up for tonight, we'd like to take you to Ambalanguda, which is famous for masks worldwide. The town is renowned for the manufacturing of wooden masks and puppets. They are from wood obtained from trees locally, known as Velkaduru, and vibrant and colorful. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.